films too. I was finding some student films, some independent films like on Craigslist and stuff. Would do some jobs for free, some like for really, really cheap. And I was just experimenting with that. And through that, somehow, I can't even remember how it happened, but I ended up also editing the sound for a film. And then that rolled into the next film. And what I mean by that is like the dialogue, sound effects, mixing all those together. And I started doing that for films. I guess some people call it sound design.
Right.
And eventually I was like, that's kind of interesting. Like, I didn't really see that coming, but I think if I could actually find a real job doing that, that could probably be a good job, get into the TV or movie industry. And so I reached out to the guy who owned that studio that I was interning in. His name is Ned Albright. And I asked him, hey, do you know anyone in post-production? I think I might be interested in getting into post-production sound for TV, film, or something like that. And he was like, yeah, let me call you back in 5 minutes. I was like, okay, cool. We hang up the phone. 5 minutes later, he calls me. He's like, write down this number. His name is Joey. He's looking forward to talking to you. I was like, okay, great. I called him, and he was the vice president of a post-production company in Burbank. And he was very like inviting and warm, and was like, come by, let's meet up. And I went, and he gave me a tour of the studio, showed me what they did. And from there, basically he said, okay, we don't have any positions available right now, but as soon as we do, I'll let you know. I was like, all right, great. That's, all I could really ask for. In that kind of business, I was realizing pretty quickly how competitive that industry is here in LA. And
interesting.
So
more competitive than the music industry.
yes, I would.
Really?
Well, I don't know. It's tough. By a little bit, but I would say yes.
Wow. I'm surprised.
I mean, let's put it this way. Before I reached out to Ned asking if he knew someone, I sent out countless resumes to studios. I couldn't even count how many, and heard nothing back from anyone.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm talking like probably around the 100 resumes. Just sending places, trying to walk in cold, got nothing from anyone.
Yeah.
And that's when I reached out to Ned and, ended up meeting Joey. A few weeks later, he called Ned while we were on a lunch break at a session, and somehow I just knew. Ned got a phone call. I would have had no way to know, but I just knew that was something. And sure enough, that was him calling Ned, telling him, hey, something opened up. We want to reach out to your guy. And so we ended up talking. Long story short, started working there, started as a night shift runner. Everyone at the night shift was really happy with me. So they told that to like the day shift people, which is really like the bigger managers and owners of the studio. And a couple months later, they they fired the daytime runner to hire me on daytime.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I heard so many stories about like how incompetent he was, which just blows me away. But anyway, yeah, it's not the point here. So then I was working in post-production for a while. I was in that business for about 9 years, going from being a runner to an engineer, and an engineer in that industry is like control room kind of stuff, right? Like or like machine room, I guess you would call it. So like actually like fixing equipment and like doing all the very technical stuff. So doing some engineering, assistant editor, sound effects editor, doing some Foley. I was just kind of like going up the ranks over a few years.
The music version of a corporate ladder.
Exactly. Yeah. And then my last couple of years, I moved to working for a different company doing specifically music editing, because I thought I would like that more. all throughout, I was doing music on the side, like evenings, weekends, stuff like that. I was always working with artists, working with bands, recording, mixing, producing, and all that. And that was always like, it was always clear that that's where my love is, like post-production. That's cool. It's fun. It's fulfilling in a way. It's also a lot of money. I was getting paid really well. It's all unionized. So there's a lot of money in it, great health benefits, life insurance before I ever thought about considering life insurance,
Right.
That was still like my early 20s when I got
That's
into
great.
that.
And rent's expensive in LA, right?
Oh, yeah.
You got bills to pay.
Right. Yeah. So then last couple of years I got into music editing. I thought I might enjoy that more because it's music and all that. But the truth is I kind of didn't. And that company was great. It was like a really small women-run company. I was the only guy in the office, and they're amazing. They're really cool. It's Pitch and Sync is the name of the company. But yeah, ultimately, it was like, the higher up the ladder, the corporate ladder, like you said, I got, the more money I made, but also the more responsibility I had, the closer I got to like the, higher up, like producers and all that kind of stuff, the less happy I was. And the correlation was pretty clear to me. That I had less time to do my own music. And my own, I mean, like even with clients, not necessarily me writing, but even just mixing for people, recording people. The less time I had for that, and the less happy I was.
Yeah.
And that was not okay with me. And it took me a few years to really make the move, because, like I said, it was, there's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of money in it, and it's very comfortable. And it's really like, and especially like in LA, it's really hard to step away from that comfort. But I just knew I had to. I knew that's like, okay, this is not working for me. Like I'm not gonna sell my happiness for money. Like that's not happening.
Yeah.
So eventually I was like, all right, I'm going to take all this money that I've been saving up from this great job and invest it in my own business. So I opened my own studio with a partner, David Triple D Diaz, and we opened the studio together in Sherman Oaks. And that was the very beginning, well, the very end of 2018. I kind of think of it as the very beginning of 2019. We opened the studio, like, got all the gear that I wanted, like exactly configured everything exactly the way I wanted. Like I wired everything myself. Like, it was my baby, and it was a really cool spot with a separate tracking room and live room. Invested in a really nice, expensive sliding glass door between the rooms that, to separate the sound well. Yeah, it was a really cool spot. And so we were doing that for a little bit. It was, like I said, 2019. We did it all throughout 2019. Business was growing and looking really good. Beginning of 2020 was looking amazing. Hopes were up. Everyone was excited. And then March 2020. And Corona happened. And everything was just like, oh, shit. What do we do now?
Right.
Now,
the rug was pulled out from underneath you, basically.
Right. As kind of, well, not everyone, but many people, what I noticed, many people working on the independent level. Record labels still had their money. No one was taking that from them. But I was still working very much on an independent level with independent artists who make their money playing gigs. Whether it's corporate gigs, weekend gigs, whatever it is. That's so many of the people I was working with and still do. That's how they were making their money. So when they don't have money, guess what?
I don't. Ain't no money to spend on studio time.
Right, exactly. Now, at the beginning of it all, I was already like deep into mixing. I was doing a lot of mixing. I was doing some tracking at the studio too. Production, I've been out of for a while now. But yeah, I was already mixing a lot, which, of course, as you and just about everyone listening to this podcast would know, mixing is very much in isolation to begin with. Most of our sessions are unattended by clients to begin with. So at the beginning, it didn't look like such a big hit. It was like, okay, I still have some work coming in from mixing. People aren't coming in for tracking or overdubbing, but I'm still mixing, and it's okay. But pretty quickly, people started running out of money to spend on my mixing services. And I started feeling that, but then it's been a roller coaster. But then I don't know if you remember, because you weren't here, but like who would remember that they extended the unemployment benefits, and they were paying, I think it was like $600 more, at least here in California, than they would normally, which was really cool. And for many of the people I was working with, they were making more money than they did before, just from unemployment. And then they started spending their money again. So I was like, oh, okay, great. Here we go. Okay, we're good.
Back in business. And
then as soon as they announced that those extra $600 are going away, business is down again. And it was so clear to see that correlation. So yeah, it was 2020 was kind of a tough year, and that is a big roller coaster.
Hey everyone, if you're anything like me, then you're probably pretty tired of having your clients never pay you on time. Collecting payments is not what we signed up for when it came to doing audio for a living. It's time to make a decision. Are you an audio engineer or are you a debt collector? And if you're tired of being a debt collector, then FilePass is for you. Their paywall feature allows you to send mixes to clients that cannot be downloaded until they pay off their remaining balance. As soon as your client pays, their download unlocks automatically. The FilePass paywall works for you 24/7 while you sleep, eat, and make amazing music. Now you can let FilePass be the bad guy so you can keep a happy, healthy relationship with your clients. Secret Sonics listeners, you can get 20% off your first year of FilePass by going to filepass.com/secretsonics. Again, that URL is filepass.com/secretsonics, and you can find that link in the show notes below. All right, back to the episode.
Meanwhile, though, I did get an opportunity to create my own little COVID bubble, right? It was me, my studio partner, Triple D, and a couple other friends of ours. We kind of decided, okay, the four of us, we are it, right? Like, we're allowed to hang out with each other. And with that, we were also making a lot of music because the studio was not booked most of the time. So they would just come by the studio and we would just write a lot of music for no real reason, which was amazing. You know, like we didn't have a band per se. We didn't have prospects of like touring and like putting out this album with this record label or whatever. It was just, we have nothing to do. Come by, let's make music.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was very freeing. It was very freeing.
Sounds like a nice respite from, the daily grind of like just being in the industry all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. But also as songwriters and producers, and talking about like all four of us, because we didn't have, like, you know, whether grind or industry or not, we didn't put expectations on ourselves. No one else was putting expectations on us, and we did not put expectations on ourselves, right? We were just having fun. And that was very eye-opening for me. The concept of going back to music for fun, not for work, but for fun.
Right.
And
why we started in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. And it kind of made me realize over months of doing that, it kind of made me realize how I have this goal now that I want to get to a point in my mixing career where I can charge enough per mix, not so that I just grind 7 days a week and have a ton of money, but so that I can allow myself to only work 2-3 days a week and have enough money, right? Yeah. And then I have, 2, 3, 4 days left in the week to have fun, to just have my students